Welcome to the Buffalo Kickoff Live podcast. I'm Josh Reed alongside Thad Brown. Our special guest this week is the one and the only, if you know him, you love him, Tyler Dunne from the Go Long TD newsletter, right? Ty, tell people where they can kind of find your stuff right now, because I know for sure people who know your stuff, they love your stuff and they can't get enough of it.
Oh, man, I really appreciate you guys having me. It's great to see you. I miss seeing you guys day in and day out at One Bills Drive. But, definitely been kind of traveling all over the place, trying to cover the league as a whole, through that long-form lens. I've always kind of gravitated toward the feature story. So by starting my own newsletter, golongtd.com, I've been able to do that, tap into different relationships around the league, profiles, features. We have a podcast, Jim Monis, the former director of personnel with the Bills, right underneath Doug Whaley. We do a show once a week, and we just started a show with Isaiah McKenzie. So I'm sure a lot of your listeners and viewers, as they know, Lil Dirty, as he goes by, he is a riot. He does not hold back. There is zero filter. Actually, one of the hilarious themes that keeps coming up is his relationship with Sean McDermott. It's very odd and entertaining, and he's always trying to see if he's actually a human being as a coach. So I think people, if you tune in, if you want to watch, listen, it's worth the time. golongtd.com.
Awesome. Great stuff. Hey, some kind of breaking news here. Along with the trade deadline, it is come and gone now. It's a little bit after 4:00, unless there's something that filters in later. Doesn't look like the Bills did anything. Also, the Bills had a couple of players land on the COVID list.
Yeah, Tanner Gentry, the wide receiver, the reserve wide receiver, and Jake Fromm, the backup quarterback, are both on the COVID list. And, it seems like these two players might be out for this weekend's game against Jacksonville still at this point. Too early to tell with that. But the big question is, Jake Fromm is obviously a quarterback. And, well, Josh Allen's a quarterback, so you would think that those two would have been in close contact at some point in the last few days. No announcement with Josh Allen. We don't know if he's vaccinated. We've thought that he probably was, just for the sake of the team. And now, it seems like the sake of the team, that situation has come up, because if Fromm is on the COVID list, you would think there's a positive test in there somewhere. And Josh Allen probably was exposed to the same thing. We don't know any of these things, but that's certainly the big question right now. And because the Bills did not announce Josh Allen, or any other quarterback for that matter, is involved in this, you would think at this point, it seems like he should be safe for the moment. However, want to point out that there have been a few times where guys go on a COVID list, and then hours later, another guy's on, and then another guy's on the next day. And it goes like that. So we will see. But for the moment, it is just two inconsequential players. And, with a game against the Jags coming up this week, there are a lot of inconsequential players. If they can come up with half the roster, they probably win that game. But for now, that is the story on Tuesday afternoon.
Hey, guys, you've been around Brandon Beane. You've had a chance to talk with him. We all have. We know how aggressive he is. He's not afraid to pull off a trade. I don't know that I'm completely surprised that the Bills didn't make a move, because I have to believe that behind the curtain he was busy making calls, and it just didn't come around, right, Tyler?
Yeah, I thought that we would see more trades across the whole league, guys. I mean, the NFL has kind of become the a little bit like the NBA this time of year. Maybe it's just the Los Angeles Rams that are willing to part with draft picks, but I thought we would see that formula kind of carry through, with more teams where, you draft a player, you don't know what's going to happen. The bust rate could be pretty high. So why not get something that's proven? If you think your Super Bowl window is wide open, take advantage of it. Blow the Bears away with an offer for Allen Robinson, blow away the Texans with an offer for Brandon Cooks. There were a lot of guys that were perceived to be players that could be on the move. Shocked, really, that we saw nothing. It was just crickets.
Melvin Ingram absolutely torched and terrorized the Bills, right? Mm-hmm. To go to the Chiefs for dirt, right? To me, I thought that was a great land for the Chiefs. And I don't know what it says about the Steelers kind of giving up a guy that's a playmaker within the conference there.
The story was that Ingram wanted out or asked for a trade. Not that I don't know if he hated it there, but he was the one that started the whole deal. And I think the Steelers wanted to trade him out of the conference, but didn't have anywhere else to send him. So the Chiefs were the recipient. I think, to be honest, that one of the big takeaways I had from that is the new opinion of where the Chiefs are at. If I'm the Steelers and I think the Chiefs are a legit Super Bowl contender, which we all would have thought, 3 weeks ago, maybe certainly before the season, Do you do that deal, or do you just eat whatever problem you're going to have with Ingram? I think it'd be the latter. So I wonder if team, now maybe, the Steelers were doing Ingram a solid in that situation, but I wonder if teams don't see the Chiefs as much of a threat as maybe we did, or everybody did 3-4 weeks ago. And going back to the Bills, I really thought, to Tyler's point too, I thought there were going to be a lot more trades following what the Rams did. All right, this is the arms race. Now we got to play catch up, whether you're an NFC or an AFC team. And for no one but the Chiefs to really land anything was surprising. If I were the Bills, I would have strongly considered the second and third round pick for Von Miller, because if the Bills need anything, or if there's anything that could make a big impact with the Bills, it would have been a pass rusher like that guy. And, I know the Bills want to stay with a long-term build. They want to, have the consistent contender, consistent winner. But boy, like Tyler said, the window for the Bills is as wide open as it might ever get right now. I might have dumped those day two picks on a guy that, very well could put me over the top this year.
I agree 100%. And that goes kind of back to what Tyler said. I mean, the bust probability is so high, especially the later you get in the different rounds. But hey, Tyler, the beauty of having a different guest on every single week is going to get a fresh take on what they think of the Bills. And I guess what is your favorite maybe storyline of the Bills season so far this year?
I mean, they just take care of business. And I know it was the Miami Dolphins, and the Dolphins are a wreck. I mean, they should be firing everybody at this point. Coach, GM, start over at quarterback. Chris Greer's been there for like 22 years. Like, he's been in the system for over 2 decades. Like, maybe he's part of the problem. I don't know. Like, Stephen Ross, they're not going to want to do it, but they got to start over. Speaking of bust rate, not to belabor the point, guys, but here's a team that accumulated firsts and seconds, and everybody called them genius. And oh my gosh, the rebuild in Miami, they were competing. They won 10 games, and yet they had all these picks. And what do they have to show for it? Austin Jackson, a corner who can't even get on the field.
They're bust. First round picks that are bust in year 2. I mean, you got to work hard to draft that poorly.
I know it. I mean, they could have turned those picks into talent via trade. But I'll say this, it was 3-3 at halftime. Everything's going wrong for the Bills. O.J. Simpson's in the house. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, what's he doing there? Did you guys get to the bottom of that? How was O.J. in the stadium? I'm sorry. He murdered 2 people. I don't get it.
As far as I know, he was just a guest of someone. And I mean, I don't know that you can, I'm with you. Don't get me wrong. I don't disagree with your thought process behind this, but I don't know how you keep someone out if he's just a random guest.
His name's up there, I guess. So, might as well.
I mean, yeah.
So a random story about that, by the way. So from what I understand, and to back up Josh, whoever the suite holder was where OJ was watching the game was someone who wanted him there. I don't know the name or any reason behind it.
Okay.
So I'm on the field and told that, all right, OJ Simpson is here. And as a photographer, it's pretty much your job to try and get a picture of that. So I'm looking up, and there's a fan maybe in row 4 who's like, oh yeah, he's up there, he'll come out or whatever. And I said, okay, yeah, thanks. And the fan's girlfriend says, do you want me to go up and get him to come out for you? I'm like, no, that's okay. You don't have to worry about that. And the woman's like, no, I'll go up and do it. I'm like, no, seriously, it's fine. It's not a big deal. So I walk away from it, and I come back.
Did you say to her real quick, you know the story behind OJ, right?
No, I figured she probably knew, like, what kind of rock do you have to be living under to not understand that right? In Buffalo? So I walk away from it, and I come back. And when I come back, the guy's there and the girl's gone. And he's like, yeah, only my girlfriend would do that. And I'm like, what? He's like, look. And I look up, and there's two police officers in front of where OJ was. She's talking to the police officers. And I see her motioning to the officer and pointing in. And the officer's kind of shaking their head like, what am I doing here at this point? At this point, I'm like, what's going on? But the officer, to their credit, the woman looks in, says something, points something. And 10 seconds later, OJ Simpson is doing the paper wave to everybody in front. And, for separate of our opinion of OJ, for me as the photographer, it worked out great, because now I've got this 30-second video of OJ waving to the crowd, people cheering, yelling back at him, the whole thing. And it wouldn't have happened if it weren't for this very ballsy fan who was in row 4 of the stadium that day.
That's wild. The conquering hero returns. Oh my God. All right. I'm sorry to get off on that tangent, guys. It's just, it was such a surreal scene, and thanks for the backstory on it, but everything's going wrong for the Bills. Everything's going wrong for Josh Allen. And then they just turn it on. I mean, it really is remarkable to see. I mean, especially taking a step back and watching other quarterbacks, other offenses. I think everybody's kind of afforded a bad game at this point of the season. Halfway through, even the best of the best. I mean, Aaron Rodgers played terrible against New Orleans to start the year. I mean, Justin Herbert, he's had some rough moments. But Josh Allen, you think it's going to be that kind of a game. Like Miami's blitzing a ton. He's frustrated. McDermott's frustrated. You could almost hear some boo birds kind of in there. You're there. And then the second half, boom. It's like automatic. He turns it on. He can't be stopped. He's getting into Christian Wilkins' space after that 2-pointer that failed. He's flexing the gun. I mean, all of that stuff. I think that's such a sign of a quarterback who, I mean, he arrived a long time ago, but it was similar to the Pittsburgh game last year where they were blitzing him like crazy and they confused him in the first half, and he just figured it out. He just figures it out. He has all the answers over the course of the game. And that, to me, that's the number one takeaway for the 2021 Bills is like, there's no questions about Josh Allen's 2020 season. It was not a fluke. There's fans in the stadium now. He's just fine. And defensive coordinators haven't figured him out. He's able to work through it. We see what teams are doing. They're sitting back with the two safeties. They're daring quarterbacks to go the length of the field. And that's what he did. 13 plays, 80 yards, over 7 minutes. After that first touchdown, they were fine.
Tyler, I wanted to ask, from a national point of view, it feels like the Bills are kind of the quiet giant, for lack of a better term, because you've got the NFC teams that play against each other. The Cardinals have big wins over the Rams. The Packers have a big win over the Cardinals. The Cowboys are a story no matter what they're doing because they're the Cowboys. In the AFC, the Bengals are up, then they're down. The Ravens are down, then they're up. Whereas the Bills they got the one loss to Tennessee since week 1, but they keep kind of, what Sean McDermott wants. They stay on that even keel, remain one of the power teams in the AFC. I think sleeping giant is the wrong term, but do you think the Bills are respected as the team that's not going to go through the up and downs that maybe some other teams will?
It's coaching, right? I mean, we all covered Rex Ryan and the Bills.
Yep.
It was the exact opposite. I mean, day to day, you didn't know what he was going to say. You didn't know what any of his players were going to say. You didn't know if he was
when he was going to be there.
If he was going to be. I mean, you guys remember seeing his truck leave at like 4:00? It's like, dude, it's 4:00. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a little more work to be done. He might have been going down to the baseball game.
But yeah.
Exactly. But it was the erratic highs and lows of Rex Ryan. There was a lot of good in there. I mean, you talk to Eric Wood, Rich Incognito, a lot of these players, they say he made them want to run through a wall with some of his speeches. He was like the most empowering coach they've ever been around, which is great. But I think sometimes, more often than not, you'd rather have that laser beam coach who's boring, who isn't going to be giving a rah-rah speech, who might bring in Phil Mickelson via Zoom to talk to the team. But, I mean, Sean McDermott, that's him, right? I mean, he's not going to get high. He's not going to get low, and they play that way. They play up to competition. They don't play down to competition. Like, they're always going to be in a game. They're always going to find a way to beat the teams that they should beat. That's probably what you would prefer. I mean, we'll see come playoff time when they've got to face the best of the best in the AFC, if that works at that point. It's kind of funny. You could make the argument that the Jets have, 2 more impressive wins than the Bills, but we'll see. I mean, I do think though that approach is probably why they are just steady and solid, and you're not going to get that surprise loss with Sean McDermott.
I think that speaks volumes to what you're talking about when you say that their motivational speaker was a PGA golfer. I mean, that pretty much says it all, right?
Yeah.
I
think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, I mean, it's Isaiah McKenzie last night for our show, like he said that, like, Sean McDermott is, in so many words and paraphrasing, just kind of boring. Like, he really is. Like, you're not going to get those speeches. You're going to get stuff that's kind of corny, stuff that's kind of cheesy, some video clips, some guest speakers, some, all that sprinkled in. But, I think players, they do respect the work ethic. They do respect the fact that he's there all the time. At one point I asked him, like, oh, you got the Jaguars this week. Urban Meyer, he didn't even go back with the team on the flight. He stayed back in Ohio, and, we all kind of saw what Urban Meyer did, and he just chuckled and was like, yeah, Sean McDermott, you're not even going to see him at a bar. And if you do, he's probably thinking about what he's going to do on third down. He's not going to just enjoy himself. Like he's going to be wired, just thinking about football all the time. So, it's something's working. So that style, it's leading to sustained success, which the team hasn't had in 2 decades.
Tyler, you've been around the league, Tyler. How unique is that? I mean, you deal with a lot of coaches. I would think most of the guys are like that, but is that not true?
I think that most are, but that's a really good question. I think a lot aspire to be that, right? I think that's the goal, but I don't think they all pull it off. Like I feel, look at Belichick's coaching tree, right? Like so many of these guys end up as head coaches, and so many of them fail. Like they try to be Belichick, they try to be a hard ass, they try to, spend all night at the office, and what does it get them? A 5-11 season, and they're fired. So I think that you have to produce, number one, and they drafted Josh Allen. I know it's overgeneralizing the situation a little bit, but if they take Josh Rosen instead of Josh Allen, McDermott's probably not even the coach right now. So it's hard to just kind of anoint geniuses all over the place, but I do think it's a perfect match. So they figured out the quarterback position, and they figured out the right temperament out of a head coach to kind of make this work. When a lot of teams have one or the other.
Yeah, and I think that outside of the Josh Allen draft pick, I think hiring Leslie Frazier as your defensive coordinator and Brian Dable as your OC was just, there's a lot of luck that goes into that type of stuff, but those three seem to have all just figured it out, and they have been so lucky. Sean has been so lucky to be able to keep those coordinators there, despite all of the success that they've had in every offseason. Well, not every offseason, the last 2 off seasons, I think we've all kind of gone in thinking that he's going to lose one of those 2. And the fact that Josh has been able to learn that system for 4 years underneath Brian Dable, and then you get, Leslie Frazier, who's just, I don't know if there's anybody that has more respect from the team and players than Leslie Frazier does inside that locker room. That you want to talk about speak softly and carry a big stick. I think that is the perfect way to describe Leslie Frazier, because you speak to him, he's soft-spoken. He's so full of knowledge, and you just know that those players in that locker room, they just drink it up. He's such an impressive guy, and I just think that that's another reason that they are where they are right now.
It was the same thing in Minnesota. When he was there, the players, they just couldn't say enough about him. And that was a team when he took over the Vikings. they were in just disarray. You're talking about the Love Boat stuff a few years before that, but then the stadium collapses, like the Metrodome collapses, and Brett Favre, as good as year 1 was in Minnesota, year 2 is when the lewd text came out, and there was just issues all over the place with that team. And when they moved to Leslie Frazier, he just kind of brought that calming influence, that calming effect. I think it's so easy for us. In the media, we're all guilty of it. I know I am. Like, you fall victim to the Dan Campbell types and the biting the kneecaps off, and like you want that fire and brimstone coach. Like the Bills hired Rex Ryan when they could have hired many other better choices. It's easy to fall into that trap and think if somebody's louder and somebody's more animated and somebody's going to make you want to run through a wall, that's what you want. Like, that's the better option, when a lot of times it's better just to have the Sean McDermott type, the Leslie Frazier type, the steady, not too high, not too low type. It might not, be that crazy, that fun. The best soundbite you're going to get is Sean McDermott talking about smelling Cheerios off of the highway, but they're winning a lot of games, and then that matters more than anything.
Tyler, I wanted to ask, going back to the draft, that's when the big Aaron Rodgers rumor about his disgust and wanting to be traded and everything. And it seemed like for you were on some radio station or some TV show every day for the next 8 months, up until basically the season started. And, as a guy who has connections there and knows a lot, every team, but certainly the Packers, what was that like for you to be one of the media members right in the center of that Rodgers cyclone for the entire summer, going all the way into training camp?
Cyclone is the best description too. A cyclone of his making. The Packers aren't sabotaging themselves here. He could talk about wisdom and silence all he wants, and he's got his weekly national show now where it's basically like a Festivus. It's an airing of grievances where he just like rips us in the media and rips former team, like all that. So that's great. He's got that platform. He loves that platform. Like, he can't pretend it away. You can't pretend away 6 months of like basically taking your GM out to the woodshed and letting him be publicly embarrassed, humiliated. I mean, that's what he wanted. I mean, it wasn't an accident that came out on draft day. I mean, in his mind, they ruined his draft night by drafting Jordan Love. He was going to ruin theirs. Like, I don't care what he says. Like, he can say whatever he wants to say. So now everything seems to be great. Everything seems to be kumbaya. I think today he said that he's had great conversations with Brian Gutekunst, and he's had input. They've signed veterans. Some have worked out, some haven't. They just released Jalen Smith. I don't know where it really is right now. I mean, it's good. They're winning games. They're 7-1. They might be the best team in the league. But when Green Bay decided to be okay with Rodgers holding them hostage for 6 months, I mean, they made it a Super Bowl or bust season. The next spring could come and Aaron Rodgers could easily say, my mind hasn't changed. Now you really have to trade me. I went through the BS for another year. I want to get out of here. And that's why I was repeating on those radio shows you mentioned, and in print, I wrote a ton of go along about this. I really thought they should have traded Aaron Rodgers. Like, I think that they had an opportunity to get maximum value where, I mean, Trey Lance is getting 3 firsts and a third. Trey Lance. What's Aaron Rodgers getting? Like 4 firsts and 4 seconds and Jerry Jeudy. And I mean, they could have picked anything they wanted. And they would have been killed. They would have been killed for it. Nobody wants to be the team that trades Aaron Rodgers. He was a reigning league MVP. I just really viewed it as he's a one-of-a-kind personality. When he's dug in, he's dug in. I'm still surprised, as many other people in the media are, that he returned. I heard up to 48 hours before that press conference, he was seriously considering retirement, and he said that himself. I think that was real. I still think you would rather take all of that stuff as a franchise versus 1 year, one shot at a Super Bowl when he is lost in the NFC Championship game quite a bit. So if they win a Super Bowl, I'm dead wrong. Like, clearly, like you do. I get it. Going all in on 1 year to Super Bowl, I absolutely get that logic, but I think it could have been a great opportunity for Green Bay as well.
We need to see Aaron Rodgers on that Manning cast, right? Because I feel like he would be much like Tom Brady. Tom Brady, by the way, I don't know your thoughts, but he has been sensational since he left New England, because we've seen a side of him that I don't think any of us knew existed. Maybe his close personal friends behind closed doors knew that Tom Brady was in there. He's been phenomenal. The commercials are hilarious. Everything that he does, starting all the way back when he went to Tampa Bay, the whole horn thing that he blew and Gronk runs out of the woods. Just like, it goes all the way back to the very, very first day when he left and went down there. But Josh Allen, I'm sure you saw him on the I don't know if you had a chance to see him on the Manning cast or not, but it was funny because we had a chance to ask him about if he would ever do that last week. And he said, yeah, but I don't think I'm not going to give them the sound bites they're going to want. And he wasn't lying. He didn't. I mean, it was fine. It was entertaining, but Josh Allen, very aware of the lane that he is in, and he's comfortable in that lane. And he's not Tom Brady, who has a fistful of rings and can just go on there and talk about anything and everything. And that's why I said I would Aaron Rodgers on that would be phenomenal, because the Manning brothers have a way of pulling that string in the back of people and letting it go, and the mouths just start flapping, and it's amazing.
Josh Allen does have a fistful of cash, so I don't know what he's so afraid of. He got paid. Like, hey, you got your money. Say whatever the hell you want. That's just his thing, right? He doesn't say a heck of a lot at his press conferences. Talk about chicken wings, talk about Buffalo being New York State's team, and that's about it. And people eat it up. So not shocked, no. But isn't that fun? Like, isn't that a great idea from ESPN to just have the Mannings on BSing with Tom? Tom Brady's been unbelievable. Marshawn Lynch was Marshawn Lynch.
Great.
I think if you're like an active viewer of the game, like if you were a fan of either team in the game, like the Giants or the Chiefs, you're probably wanting the like the milk toast broadcast with Louis Riddick and Brian Greasy. They're not
I don't
really
know if you
saying
would,
anything.
Tyler. I mean, like you said, it is milk toast now. I mean, I'm wondering, how do you watch that other broadcast now? Because the Manning cast seems that good to me.
I'm just saying, like if you're a diehard fan, you want to be locked into what's happening on the field. You know what I mean? Like you don't care that much about what people are saying. Like with the Manning cast, I love it because I don't really have a favorite team or anything like that. So it's entertaining. They're gonna just kind of have some fun, and the game's more so in the background. Maybe that is the future of broadcasting. I hope it is. I hope it is. But yeah, it's fun, and it was a great idea. I hope they keep doing it.
Josh, don't be humble, by the way, with this we stuff. You asked about Josh Allen and the Manning cast, and I have the strong suspicion that were it not for that question and the answer that Josh gave, I don't think Josh would have been on, last Sunday night or last night. So give yourself a little pat on the back there about helping to push the Josh Allen brand out in the national spotlight.
Yeah, I don't think Josh Allen's brand needs my help. I'm quite certain that Josh Allen is going to be just fine without Josh Reed pushing for him.
Tyler, you talk about the Isaiah McKenzie show and a lot of the stuff you've done with Go Long, which is it's fascinating stuff, especially diving back into some of the recent history of the Bills and how the Doug Whaley, how that regime operated, how EJ Manuel is one of the more recent pieces. What's been some of the fun of doing that, and what are some of the good stories that you've been able to learn? A lot of times that happened that's 30 years ago, 40 years ago. This is recent past. This is stuff that is still relatively fresh in a lot of minds.
I'm definitely fortunate. I mean, Doug Whaley and Jim Monos, they're so just open and engaging, and they've got nothing to hide. I mean, they're not in the league, so nobody's cutting them checks. They're not got to worry about getting called to the principal's office with anybody. They're just going to be honest, and they are unbelievably honest. Probably, they could probably be more ticked off than they are, really. But they get Sean McDermott the interview, right? Like they get Jim Monos gets in the interview. He worked with him before and pushes for him, wants him to get hired. And then what happens? Well, McDermott kind of ascends and becomes the one voice for the organization, and then he just kicks them both to the curb. But there's no animosity. There really isn't. I mean, we do a podcast every week, Monos and myself. Whaley comes on a lot, and they're the first to say, like, we should have been let go. Like, we totally get it. We couldn't find a quarterback. Sean McDermott wanted his front office, his guys. They got it. They just kind of chuckled at, like, look at our last draft. I mean, Trey White, Deion Dawkins, Matt Milano, ammo to get Josh Allen the next year. Not all that bad. To answer your question, I mean, I think probably the most fascinating story that I've heard from these two, and it kind of started with conversations with them, is just everything that led to Josh Allen and the fact that their boss, Terry Pagula, was infatuated with Patrick Mahomes. That's what we launched Go Along with a year ago. And it's wild, back when nobody really liked Mahomes, and scouting community, coaching community, anybody, Mel Kiper and Shea Adams is like a second, third rounder. Terry Pagula loved him and was pushing for him and was in meetings and in everybody's ear. And they just kind of like, it became a running joke. And eventually, McDermott spoke up on draft day. Whaley and Monos, they weren't really on board too. They saw issues with Mahomes. But McDermott did not want to draft a quarterback. He wanted to win now with Tyrod, try to end the drought, do all that stuff. So they wait. They get Josh Allen the next year. At the time last year when I wrote that, I think you'd argue, of course, you'd rather have Mahomes. I mean, he is Michael Jordan. They passed on Michael Jordan. With Mahomes' struggles right now, with the fact that Josh Allen's figuring defenses out, I wonder. I mean, it's a debate to be had. Would you rather Mahomes, or would you rather Trey White, Allen, and all of that?
It's a heck of a debate for sure. And it's funny that even 4 or 5 weeks ago, it probably would not have been a debate. But right now, it speaks to what both guys have done. It certainly is a debate. Josh, you ready to do 3 things here?
Let's do it. Let's crank it up.
All right, 3 things. That's 3 things every week. We do 1 Bills thing, 1 NFL thing, 1 other thing. The Bills thing to start out this week, and we talk about championship window. The rest of this year, and Tyler, I'll let you take this one first. What's the big Bills question? And maybe they have the answer for it already, but what's the question that you want to see answered on this team in order for them to finally get over that championship hump and raise a Super Bowl trophy sometime in mid-February?
Are they kicking field goals from the 2-yard line at Arrowhead? Wherever they're playing, whether it's home or away in the playoffs, if you have a chance to put your foot above a team's jugular, are you going to take it or are you going to kick a field goal? I think, they weren't going to win that game in the AFC Championship game. Mahomes and Kelsey and Hill, they're going to run away with it. But I think the mentality of the team has to be to just go for the win. And it was, even though they lost to the Titans, even though they didn't convert that, it was good to see Sean McDermott go for it in that situation. So I think that's still the question. Like, how aggressive are they going to be late in games? Because they've got the talent to win it all.
To me, I'm going to be very specific because I think that we look around the AFC and go, oh, the Bills can beat any team. Go down to Tampa Bay and beat the Buccaneers. Beat Tom Brady on his home field. That'll show me that not only are you probably the best team, maybe the favorite to win the AFC, that you can then go to the Super Bowl and actually win it and win everything this year. If you can go on the road, beat Tom Brady in December on his home field, to me, that would be a win there that would have this city feeling like it hasn't since I don't know when. You probably would have to go back to the Super Bowl years, right? I mean, last year's run was fun and it was cool, and they were able to knock off the Ravens and the Colts and still got up against the Chiefs then and lost. To me, even though it's not a playoff game, and I get that, it sure would feel like it. It would feel like a playoff win and something really big for this fan base to grasp onto.
The question I want to see answered is, in particular, where are the Bills getting a pass rush? We talked about it going back to the start of the season. It was there in that first Miami game and really has not been there since, occasionally. But from a larger point of view, do the Bills have enough up front to not get pushed around when push comes to shove in a playoff game? I thought in that Titans game, you look at the 2 road games the Bills played before the bye. The Kansas City game, Buffalo was by far the tougher team, both sides of the ball, and just owned the line of scrimmage. And then they got owned by the Titans the week after. Do the Bills have enough? Can they find someone who can be maybe one or two someones who can be that attitude guy and preferably, on the defensive side of the ball to rush the passer? But either way, they're going to run into teams like the Ravens, potentially the Browns, Tennessee again, Indianapolis. These are all tough teams up front in general. Can the Bills hang with them 3 times in a row to win a game? I'm not sure they can, and that's the one I want to see, answered. All right, thing number 2, the NFL thing. We'll start with Josh. Just very simply, we're week 9 now, about halfway through the season. Your biggest surprise can be a positive surprise or a negative surprise through 8 weeks of the season. Obviously it's the NFL. We get a few, and one of the reasons I bring this up too is I've always gone by the axiom of you don't know anything about the NFL until Halloween. Well, we just went by Halloween, so we know things about the NFL. What's your biggest surprise so far?
I'm going to circle all the way back to the Green Bay Packers. We've talked about it already. I mean, the fact that they're sitting at 7-1 before the season, like Tyler said, most people thought that there's no way Aaron Rodgers ever wears a Green Bay jersey again. Here he is. They're winning games left and right. They win 7 in a row now. I think they're sitting at 7. And he is lighting the league on fire again. They're winning games without his top 3 receivers on the field. He's coming off the field saying, I'm having a great time in Green Bay. Like, I'm sitting here going, to me, that's the biggest surprise. And it's been a fun one. And to me, Aaron Rodgers is good for the league. I mean, he's one of those guys that's he makes it fun to follow the league. So right now, I think Rodgers and the Packers are kind of my surprise.
Tyler?
I'm going to go with the return of defense dictating the terms in football. I mean, I was going to say Mahomes, but I think it's even bigger than Mahomes. I think it's the fact that, we always assumed you need a star stud quarterback who's just going to be throwing the ball deep. And that's the NFL. I mean, and you're seeing it week in and week out. Defenses are just sitting back. They're just taking away the big play. 2 deep look, force teams to go 13, 14, 15 plays. You hope a guy like Mahomes gets frustrated with that and makes a dumb decision and turns it over. It's kind of the NFL. I mean, Mike White threw for 400 yards last week. I think 240 of those yards were yak. So it's basically the new running game. It's the dinks, it's the dunks, it's the patience. It's maybe not as fun to watch as the bombs deep, but it's across the league. And you need to have an offense that is willing to run the ball, willing to work short intermediate. And then if you can get one safety to creep up for a play or two, then you take your shot deep. Then you got that one-on-one opportunity. I think it's why maybe Stephon Diggs is having a different kind of season. It hasn't been what you saw last year. So I know it's not necessarily an exciting answer for you, but I think that, you can win with defense and a running game in this season's NFL.
My surprise is, speaking of circling back to the Dolphins, and it's not necessarily about, the record or any of that stuff. I thought Brian Flores had an organization that was competent and put together and able to, do basic things you do in the NFL. And this team can't beat the Jags. They can't finish games. Against the Bills, they can't run a man in motion without having the ball fumble for no particular reason. And I didn't think Flores was going to be that guy. I thought he was a guy that was going to build a program. Look, they may not be able to draft a great quarterback, but they should still be more functional than 1-6, especially when you're playing the teams that the Dolphins have played. So, to me, I'm blown away. I didn't, we talked about who was going to challenge the Bills. A lot of people thought it was the Dolphins. I didn't know if they were going to be elite challengers, but to just fall apart like this to where we're talking about Brian Flores being on the hot seat, I would have, I tell you what, I'll be honest, in August, I would have been more likely that Bill Belichick is not the coach of the Patriots than Brian Flores is not the coach of the Dolphins. Not because Belichick's going to be terrible, but because he just want to move on for whatever reason. This blows me away, the Dolphins being this bad so far. All right, the final thing, and this is prompted by Josh Allen on the Manning cast last night. Peyton Manning said that Josh Allen gave his son an actual game-worn jersey. Now, not just like a jersey he bought in this team store or whatever, a legit jersey. There were grass stains on the thing. You could tell it had been used. So it got me thinking, if you could have any jersey, any athlete ever in the history of sports, but game used, so from a particular game, and Tyler, I'll let you go with this one first. What's the player and the game and the jersey that you would want to have on that wall behind you in the office right now?
Whew, man. I grew up a diehard Charlotte Hornets fan. Like that, we all
I didn't know
had
those
that
people
one.
existed, by the way. I mean, good.
Yeah, it's strange. I know. Maybe it was the colors, Lonzo Mourning, Glenn Rice, Anthony Mason. The thing is, they didn't really have like a memorable game. They were just kind of good, never great. So, as you guys probably know, I'm big into the obscure NBA references and obscure NBA big men. So let's go with Matt Geiger, 52. When the Hornets, I believe it was 96 or 97, probably 96. They ended the Chicago Bulls home winning streak. I remember watching the game at my grandparents. I was like in second or third grade. We got the game on the Chicago broadcast on the big satellite dish somehow. Watched it. The Hornets, it was just a random regular season game, but I know Geiger was on that team. So give me his sweaty, bloody, grimy 52 dark purples. I think they were in that night. I'm going with Geiger.
I love that answer. There was no way me and you were top of that answer, Josh.
No, there's no way. I mean, mine would definitely be more valuable, but I can't top it.
Geiger could get you 15 or 20 bucks on eBay.
I'm gonna go with a little bit outside the box. And full disclosure, Thad sent us this question to give us a little bit of time to think about it because, and I thought a lot about it, not a little bit, because I went back and forth on, all right, growing up in Cleveland, LeBron was the only player to ever kind of do that for one of my home teams. But I kept going back to bigger names. You go back to Jordan, and then I went outside the box. And I went, you know what? Muhammad Ali's trunks from 1975. Give me those. The Thrilla in Manila when he beat Joe Frazier, the third of the trilogy, the TKO in the 14th round. It just, to me, I had a chance. Deer Lake, Pennsylvania is where Muhammad Ali trained for a decade. It's this little town. I mean, it is out in when I went and did a story out there on this camp that the log cabins and just a horse stable that he had. He had a mosque there. This place was unbelievable. The ring was still in the room. Like, it was awesome. The pictures hanging up. He had boulders. So I've always kind of been infatuated with Muhammad Ali, as a lot of people are. But to me, give me the 1975 Muhammad Ali beats Joe Frazier in the Thrilla in Manila.
That's a great answer too, Josh. And I'll tell you what. So I had one locked and loaded, and then I was going to go big time too, and you would have hated it. because I was going to go John Elway in the first drive game. Because I want the moment. As a Cleveland guy, I know, I'm sorry, man.
Something's wrong with I can't see you guys anymore. I can't.
You go Ernest Biner, maybe. You know?
No, that would have been too hard, Tyler. That would have been twisting the screws. That would have been like jamming the spoon right in his eye. But because I wanted the grimy Cleveland Stadium, big moment, legendary. But I'll tell you what, you guys kind of made it personal, and it got me thinking. Growing up as a Jets fan, I used to watch every game as a kid. And you guys remember the 86 when they were good? Kenny O'Brien and Dan Marino had that crazy 51-45 game.
Sure.
So I watched most of that game. 2 minutes ago, the Jets are down, and I'm at my grandmother's house. Mom says, you got to go eat dinner now. So I walk in, eat dinner, turn the game off. I mean, I figured that they were done. My uncle comes over later. He's like, did you see the Jets game? Like, yeah, they lost. He's like, no, they scored a touchdown. And he wasn't really understood of like what was all the Jets players were. So Wesley Walker actually was blind in one eye. So his story was, they threw a touchdown pass to a guy who was blind in one eye. And then in overtime, they threw another touchdown to a guy who was blind in both eyes. And I'm like, well, I don't think you got all the details right of that. But as happened, the Jets scored a touchdown in the last play of the game and then won in overtime. So you know what? Give me that Wesley Walker jersey. I want that game. 500 yards, 8 million yards passing, 50 points. And the legendary personal story to go with it, that'd be the one I'd love to have hanging in my office.
That's
love it. That's great.
That's really good stuff. Hey, real quick answer from you guys. Put you on the spot here. And Thad and I, we kind of talked about it a little bit before the pregame. The Dolphins come out in their teal tops, the really cool helmet. The Bills went with the standing, Buffalo helmet. Right now in the NFL, what's your favorite combo right now, Tyler, when you see a team go out on the field, and it could be just a helmet, what's your favorite look?
Oh man.
You got one, Thad?
I'm trying to think. Yeah. I think you probably got one if you thought of this, right?
And this is a very Homer answer. I love it when the Browns go with the brown top and the orange bottoms. I just think it's awesome. It reminds me of Brian Sipe. It reminds me of like my childhood. And obviously the Browns helmets they all pretty much look alike. So there's no logo that's been changed ever there. So, but that's my, that combo I love.
It's funny.
Outer Blues.
Outer
Blues.
Yeah. Great call.
Chargers, man. I mean, they're bringing it back. I love when it's white on white or it's powder blue on powder blue. I like the monotone.
That's
colors.
a good look.
You guys gonna think it's weird. You know what I like? I like the color rush jerseys. Not every single one of them, but man, when you get those nights where it's blue on blue or red on red or something that's super loud, I like most of those. Give me those. Not like if it's white, I'm out on it. Give me color on both top and bottom.
All right, I think we've done it all now. We started with COVID talk. Trade deadline talk. We ended up on swapping of the jersey talk, and so I think we've done it all. Tyler, thanks so much, Tyler Dunne. Thanks so much for hanging out here on the Buffalo Kickoff live podcast. Thanks to everybody out there for watching and listening.